Now you've made, of course, many, many records. You're always in the studio. You see talent developing. Many try, very few achieve. Talk about some of the mind states. Talk about some of the perseverance, commitment, professionalism. Talk about some of the traits that you see in successful artists, writers, and musicians. And then talk about where you're seeing some of the revenues are for especially developing artists and musicians and writers.
I've been fortunate to be young, but I'm older, but I'm younger, you know. But I've been fortunate to be a part of the analog history now to the digital history. And one thing that I've done through the years is I'm in the studio like every single day. In the morning I do business, conference calls, deals, and whatever. And the rest of the day I'm in the studio. I've been fortunate to work with the who's who. And the transition from 80s and 90s to now and the attitude is completely different. Like when I work with artists now, I have to deal with explaining to them how to persevere and stay in this business. And despite trying to get a hit is a portion of being in the business, and that's why it's called the music business. It's not called the hit business. It's the business of music. And how to stay in the business and persevere as a producer, a writer, and an artist. What do you do to stay in the business? Because you got 1 billion people on this earth, and you got so many people that are trying to shoot for the same goal. So I tell artists, how do you condition your mind to achieve those goals? And number one is, your business structure is important. You can be the greatest artist, we can have the best artists in this room, but at the end of the day, we can have a mediocre artist in the room. It's going to be their business sense that's going to keep them persevering, you know, from beginning to the end. It doesn't matter how great you are. The studio is a portion of it. Of course, you got to be resilient when it comes to production and writing, and understand great writing and production. But from my experience, the years that I've been in the business from young until now, what has kept me in the business is understanding the business and figuring out. I come from a time where when I started my label and then working for a grand jury of Warner Brothers in the 90s, and I started my record label, I used to mail CDs off to 50 stores across the country. And then what they do is mail you back an invoice. You got to sign it, and then you mail it back to them, and when it sells or not, then it comes back to you. I come from that time where sometimes the product didn't sell, and they'll ship all the boxes back to my store, and I had my little team. I had my retail guy, I had my recording studio was in the same building. I come from that time, so I understand both sides, the recording side and also the producer side and the artist side, because I had to do it all. But in doing it all, I've seen the transition and I've learned. So I tell artists this, I said, it's okay to want to be a star. To me, that's like 5% of the whole deal, because once you become the star, then you realize the most important thing you should have been paying attention to was the 90%, which was the business, right? Am I correct? I mean, we've all seen the stories, right, in past history. So in order to stay in the business, you have to understand that there's so many lines of income, but the most important part of income is, which we all forget, and most people look over because everybody's trying to make a hit, and everybody's thinking about social media and streaming, but what's streaming without product? The biggest deal in making money in the industry to this day is still catalog. You take somebody like TuneCore, for example, who has about 4,000 songs in their catalog. So let's just say most of the artists that are in TuneCore are not major artists, but can you only imagine what they're collecting on streaming every quarter? So what you gotta understand is, as an artist, you can't just be an artist anymore. You gotta literally be a little bit of everything. You need to be in the studio. You need to not worry so much about a single, because I notice most artists I talk to, they tell me, oh, I'm working on my single, I got my single coming out, and I see them again 9 months later, and I say, what's going on? Oh, I'm still working on my single. I drop 5 to 10 albums under my label a month. I don't care if it doesn't work. I don't care if it doesn't blow up. The point is to catalog. You look at EMI and BMG and companies like this, they might sign 5 acts a year, 10 acts, and maybe 2 acts do well, and they'll cover the cost for the acts that didn't do well. But at the end of the day, it's about a catalog. They understand the concept of the business. They're building catalogs. And then what this company does is they turn around and they take those catalogs and it's a note, and I'm talking business now, like real estate, it's a note and they go borrow against that note. That same note that you created was your value. So as an entrepreneur and an artist, you gotta be more than just an artist. There's so many lines of income, and it starts with the catalog. Okay, people say, I don't wanna work anymore, I wanna just be an artist, but are you willing to put in the work? To really collect that sort of residual, you're gonna have to really put in the work. And I'm not talking about a hit. Imagine if you had 1,000 albums out right now. And I'm just hypothetically speaking, on a low end figure, can you imagine what you'd be collecting? Because now it's not about a hit. There's 1 billion people, you got 1 billion opportunities at being successful. So if you have 1,000 songs or 1,000 albums out there, can you only imagine what you're collecting in residual? And I'm telling you this because I see my residuals under my company on a regular basis, and I'm amazed. Because I can name some of the artists that are under my label, you've never heard of them. But collectively, as a whole, my label's generating a lot of money. So the first source of income in the music industry, which we all forget, is your catalog. Because there's smaller companies now who are going to independent artists and saying, hey, do you need to borrow money? Yeah, I could use some money. Okay, how many projects do you have? I have 4 projects. Okay, they do an analysis of what your catalog has collected in residual over a year or 9 months, and if you say I need 5,000 to 10 million, they're gonna give you that money, but they're gonna give it to you, not the major label. So you don't misunderstand the value of being an artist, but the most important value of being an artist is to create your catalog. It starts with your inner economy, then your social economy. You've got to create these catalogs because that's where your real power is.
Very well put.